Mike Wells, superintendent of the Hamburg Community School District, said one of the biggest concerns about having no fresh water is staying clean. The school district has coordinated providing buses for residents to ride 40 kilometers to Shenandoah or 16 kilometers to Sidney to shower. A local ministerial society has been picking up residents' laundry at the school district, taking it to Shenandoah to wash it, and returning it. Flooding near the Platte River in Plattsmouth, Nebraska. The National Weather Service is warning that flooding in parts of South Dakota and northern Iowa could soon reach historic levels. Reddit. App school will resume on Thursday. Wells said the first half of the school day will be regular classes, but in the afternoon students will help collect laundry, deliver water, check on older residents and help provide food to those who need meals. The floods have killed 4 people in Nebraska and Iowa since last week. A 5th man has been missing since the collapse of the Spencer Dam along the Niobrara River last week. Authorities said they had rescued nearly 300 people in Nebraska alone. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said she would be asking President Donald Trump for an expedited disaster declaration. She said officials in her state were gathering damage estimates first. National Weather Service hydrologist Kevin Lowe said during a telephone briefing on Wednesday that major and perhaps historic flooding is possible later this month at some spots on the Big Sioux and James Rivers in South Dakota and northwestern Iowa. A ute is swamped by floodwaters in Hamburg, Iowa, on Wednesday. Credit. A Parker, the state Homeland Security and Emergency Management spokeswoman, said even though southwestern Iowa was hit hardest in the state during this round of flooding, there are concerns of more widespread flooding ahead. We're definitely not out of the woods, she said, before later adding, so take this opportunity to get prepared. Farmer Jeff Jorgensen looks at over 750 acres of cropland submerged beneath the swollen Missouri River, and he knows he probably won't plant this year. That's not his biggest worry. He and other farmers have worked until midnight for days to move grain, equipment and fuel barrels away from the floodwaters fed by heavy rain and snowmelt. The rising water that has damaged hundreds of homes and been blamed for 3 deaths has also taken a heavy toll on agriculture, inundating thousands of acres, threatening stockpiled grain and killing livestock. Flooding along the Missouri River in Iowa on Tuesday. Credit. In Fremont County alone, Jorgensen estimates that more than 1 million bushels of corn and nearly 500,000 bushels of soybeans have been lost after water overwhelmed grain bins before they could be emptied of last year's crop. His calculation using local grain prices puts the financial loss at more than $7 million, $9.9 million in grain alone. That's for about 28 farmers in his immediate area, he said. Once it's deposited in bins, grain is not insured, so it's just lost money. This year farmers have stored much more grain than normal because of a large crop last year. Fewer markets in which to sell soybeans because of a trade dispute with China. Loading. The economy in agriculture is not very good right now. It will end some of these folks' farming, family legacies, family farms, he said. There will be farmers that will be dealing with so much of a negative they won't be able to tolerate it. Jorgensen, 43, who has farmed since 1998, reached out to friends on Saturday, and they helped him move his grain out of bins to an elevator. Had they not acted, he would have lost $135,000, $190,000. Vice President Mike Pence surveyed flooded areas in Nebraska on Tuesday, local time, where he viewed the raging Elkhorn River, talked to first responders and visited a shelter for displaced people. He promised expedited action on presidential disaster declarations for Iowa and Nebraska. We're going to make sure that federal resources are there for you, Pence told volunteers at Waterloo, a town of less than 1,000 residents about 34 kilometers west of Omaha that was virtually cut off by the floodwaters. The flooding is expected to continue throughout the week in several states as high water flows down the Missouri River. Swollen rivers have already breached more than a dozen levees in Nebraska, Iowa and Missouri, according to the Army Corps of Engineers. The flooding, which started after a massive late winter storm last week, has also put some pig farms in southwest Iowa underwater. The dead animals inside must be disposed of, Reynolds said. Vice President Mike Pence and Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds' second right point to flooded areas, with Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts left during a helicopter flight over areas affected by the flooding of the Missouri and Elkhorn rivers on Tuesday. Credit. Apt water rose so quickly that farmers in many areas had no time to get animals out, said Chad Hart, an agricultural economist at Iowa State University. Places that haven't seen animal loss have seen a lot of animal stress. That means they're not gaining weight and won't be marketed in as timely a manner, which results in additional cost, he said. In all, Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson estimated $400 million, $565 million, of crop losses from fields left unplanted or planted late and up to $500 million, $706 million, in livestock losses. In a news release issued on Tuesday, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts said there have been deadlier disasters in the state but never one as widespread. He said 65 of the state's 93 counties are under emergency declarations. A train sits in floodwaters from the Platte River, in Plattsmouth, Nebraska, on Sunday. Credit. In neighboring Missouri, water was just shy of getting into Rywani McCann's home along a recreational lake in Holt County, where about 16,188 hectares and hundreds of homes have been flooded. She said her home sits on a 2.5 meters foundation. We have no control over it, the 38-year-old said. We just have to wait for the water to recede. It's upsetting because everything you have worked for is there. The Missouri River was forecast to crest on Thursday morning, local time, at 3.5 meters above flood stage in St. Joseph, Missouri, the third highest crest on record. More than 100 roads are closed in the state, including a growing section of Interstate 29. Leaders of the small northwestern Missouri town of Craig ordered an evacuation. The Holt County Sheriff's Department said residents who choose to stay must go to City Hall to provide their name and address in case they need to be rescued. In nearby Atchison County, Missouri, floodwaters knocked out a larger section of an already busted levee overnight, making the village of Watson unreachable, said Mark Manchester, the county's deputy director of emergency management. Flooding in rural Iowa, where crops have been devastated. Credit. App officials believe everyone got out before thousands of more acres were flooded. But so many roads are now closed that some residents must travel more than 160 kilometers out of their way to get to their jobs at the Cooper Nuclear Station in Nebraska, he said. It's a lot harder for people to get around, Manchester said. River flooding has also surrounded a northern Illinois neighborhood with water, prompting residents to escape in boats. People living in the Illinois village of Roscoe say children have walked through floodwaters or kayaked to catch school buses. Flooding along rivers in western Michigan has damaged dozens of homes and businesses. AP, Reuters. Extreme weather is